Okay, the phone is off, mobile phone off, good. So we have a little bit of peace and tranquility away from people being able to get us, or not even people, even the phone itself wants to get you, doesn't it? Sort of Android or Siri or Alexa or whoever they're trying to get you. So not only do we have to contend with humans trying to get us, we've got to contend with the phone trying to get you, the system. What do we call it? The system, yeah. Makes you a bit paranoid, doesn't it? And so we should be. But anyhow, so kill it. Try to kill it anyhow. Try to kill your phone. And then we can relax a bit, because it is one of the problems that we are too distracted. We're too distracted. We have too many things on our mind. So, yeah. I've just been doing a course, actually. I've just been up at our sister centre in Bendigo for the last 4 days doing a retreat. And that retreat was on a text by Lama Tsongkhapa, who lived many hundreds of years ago in Tibet. And the text, one way you could translate the text is sort of, the spiritual path for busy people, I suppose. The spiritual path for busy people. So hundreds of years ago when Lama Tsongkhapa was alive in Tibet, he realised what was going to happen. He could see what's going to happen. We're going to become busy, we're going to become crazy, we're going to have mobile phones and all these other technologies and things that want to engage with us. And so this delightful little text we were studying and meditating upon, it was really quite lovely to think that these great masters, literally who lived in caves in Tibet, literally lived in caves, would provide something like a legacy for us to say, well, look, we know you're not going to live in a cave. You're just not. Here we are, the 21st century. We're not going to live in caves. I think if you did live in a cave, you'd be some media person would hunt you down, I reckon. So we've probably got, you have to be careful not to be too variations from the normal, otherwise somebody will come to get you. So it's but how's that? So many hundreds of years ago, a spiritual master who gained realizations in a cave, meditating, fasting, doing incredible ascetic practices, left us a little snippet of knowledge, a few verses of encouragement for us to practice spiritual philosophy, even when we're really busy, even when the whole apparatus that we experience is wanting to engage with us. And that's what it is, I suppose. Consciousness, what is consciousness? Consciousness is, the definition is clear and knowing. That is what our consciousness is. So consciousness is clear in the sense that it doesn't have a physical form. So we don't really say, some people would say the brain is your consciousness. Cool. They can have that sort of theorem, that sort of paradigm, that's okay. We believe consciousness has no form, so the ability to know has no form. But then the second aspect, so it's clear and then it's knowing. That means consciousness exists to know. Consciousness knows. That's how we know there is consciousness, because there is something that is knowing. That's a bit of a circular argument, I suppose, but I know, therefore I am. I think Descartes said something like that. I think, therefore I am. René Descartes. So yeah, it's similar to that. Yeah, I know consciousness. Consciousness knows, and so it's always reflecting objects. Now, one of the problems we've got is that it can become exhausting when there's too many objects that the consciousness engages with, and too many objects. And if there are too many objects, then we become tired. We become tired. This I, this you, we become tired. We just become tired. And then if that tiredness goes on for too long and too many objects, then we can start to experience sort of like distress. And that distress can be like, stress. There's too much going, too much. We've been asked to experience too much. We've been asked to process too much and asked to engage too much. Now, then that stress, distress, that stress, that can then lead to like anxiety, because we can't process everything, there's too much. And that goes on long enough, maybe lead to depression, many other aspects of mental sort of health issues apart from that. Maybe even psychotic illnesses, obsessive compulsive disorder, bipolar, all those sort of things. Certainly there are a lot of aspects to these diseases, but one of them is that the mind is not being able, is too engaged with too many objects, especially negative objects, really negative objects. So what do we do in meditation? Meditation is really, really simplified. It's basically a simplification of the process of mind. The mind exists, it's clear and it's knowing, it exists to know, it exists to know. The objects that we know create us. What I know creates me. What I've got to know, what I've experienced in life, creates me. So I'm a product of that. Okay, I've got a body. This came from Mum and Dad, courtesy of their chromosomes. Thank you for Mum and Dad for the chromosomes. And so I am this. You are that, courtesy of Mum and Dad. Okay, your mind, well, it didn't really come from Mum and Dad. That came from your previous moment of mind. And this previous moment of mind, so the mind I had when I walked in that door was one sort of mind. I'd actually been watching the Queen's funeral, so that was really sentimental. So I had this sentimental mind as I listened to the bagpipers, bagpiping the hearse down or not the hearse, the carriage with the body. So that was that sentimental mind, and then thinking about that. And because I had one object in my mind that created sentiment. A little bit of sadness, sentiment. And then I walked in the door, and another type of mind arose. Holy shimoli, I've got to get my act together and talk to these people tonight. I better start thinking about Buddhist philosophy. So that was the next state of mind. And that mind thinking, okay, well, what this now? I'm in this holy place. Focus the mind on developing love, compassion, patience, generosity, all those sort of minds, and try to, what is the nature of we need to understand. So each of those minds lead to the next one, and that's me. So I'm this movement of that. Now, you're the same. You walked in here. I don't have no idea what your mind was like in the door. It's different now. You've sat for a little bit. You might be bored. You might be interested. You might be thinking about tomorrow. You might be thinking what happened today. Let's hope that as we go through the meditation process, we become a little bit more focused. So what is meditation? It is to simplify, because instead of having rapid engagement with too many things which causes distress, anxiety, stress, depression, etc., physical problems too, then we simplify it. In meditation we have a simple object. There are different ways of doing meditation. The first meditation is just on the nature, the breath, okay? And that one, it's just really simple, really, really simple. The mind will fight back. The mind is like, I remember the first time I did this meditation, I thought, gee, my mind's like a pack of baboons, jumping up and down and stomping. I mean, you see those Tarzan movies, and Tarzan's in the jungle, and then suddenly he's suddenly amongst a pack of baboons or chimpanzees or gorillas, and all jumping up and down. I said, gee, that's what my mind's like, as soon as I try to stop it. And that's what it is like. Yeah, your mind is like a pack of baboons jumping up and down, but we don't know that, because the whole world is a pack of baboons jumping up and down around us, and so we're sort of dancing with that. But when we stop and we slow down, we actually say, wow, my mind is really unfocused. We might think we're brilliant at what we do, and probably many people are brilliant at what they do, and they can focus, but still in the background there's this pack of baboons, this tribe of baboons, pack, group, family, no, I don't know. Tribe of baboons jumping up and down. So that's our mind. And so the mind will fight back. We'll try to focus it, and then the mind will fight. And suddenly there's this explosion of thoughts in the mind. Okay. You breathe in, you breathe out, and just try to focus on that. Really so simple. Just so simple. And that process, slowly the baboons stop jumping up and down. There'll always be a couple, but sort of slowly you tell them to just sit down in the jungle. and we'll all be quiet for a little bit. So that's one aspect of meditation, is just give ourselves a bit of break. Really just give ourselves a break. And it's so good to be able to do this, so that if we ever really need like an emergency, like rescue remedy, like we need, instead of popping a Valium or something when something happens, or say, well, what sort of what mental training tool have I got to deal with something? I'm really stressed, really worried about this, or this person is really taking me to a point I can't handle, or I've got to deal with a really complex issue, or for no reason at all. It's just out of nowhere, out of some sort of weird ripening karma, the incredible distress. Okay, well, this, just breathe in, breathe out, quiet those baboons, stop them jumping around a little bit. And then by doing that, then it frees up a bit of mental space, and then sometimes we can find a solution. But while it is baboons jumping up and down, we can't find a solution. It's impossible. It's impossible. So we have to sort of quieten it down. So meditation does that. So meditation means to become familiar. Then, when we become familiar with something, if we become very familiar with like anger or jealousy, or really bad jealousy, like you're being hurt and really, really badly hurt, and the person who hurt you has gone off. He doesn't give a shit about you. They don't. They've gone off, they've hurt you, they've left you, they've moved on. But you're so hurt and you're jealous. They've moved on, but you haven't. Okay, that can become an obsession. Every day, at night, every day at night. That's terrible. Or anger that you've been hurt, or maybe it's really angry. And that anger might be that rage, but it can also just be that buried anger, that really deep resentment. That's like a cancer. It's like a cancer inside you. It's there all the time, always in the background. Or unfettered desire, where you really got to have something, and until you get that, you can't rest, you can't even eat. It makes you sick, the desire. So these sort of minds, the more we become familiar with them, the more we become that. So if I were to let that obsess me, then Alan would be angry Alan, desirous Alan, jealous Alan, blah, blah, all that sort of Alans. Okay. That's one Alan path to go on. Okay, the other Alan path is to say, well, what do I want to do? Okay, what do I want to be? What's my goal in life? So my goal in life is to become a better person. How do we become a better person? Well, anger or jealousy. Jealousy is just torture. Jealousy is just torture. So why am I torturing myself? Do I want to get rid of this? Okay, how do you get rid of jealousy? Rejoice. Rejoice in that person, what they've achieved, what they've got, at your expense, but you give them the victory. Rejoice. Okay. Forgiveness. Forgiveness is another way to just forgive, rejoice. How do you do with desire that is sort of consuming? We'll meditate on some of the less favourable features of it. Well, we've been meditating on impermanence, so meditate on impermanence. So if the object of this desire is somebody, a being who's really attractive, and you've got to have, then you meditate on them getting older, and old, decrepit, skin flabby, face flabby, and then you meditate on them dying, like dear old Queen Elizabeth. There she is, she was so beautiful. Now she's dying, her body's rotting. Or maybe it's not, maybe it's stuffed full of formula, I don't know, but something's, it's still not really good. Whatever is there in that coffin is probably not really good, and won't be that good in another 100 years, no matter what sort of coffin she's in. Really going to be bad. So we'll go much quicker than that, because no one cares about us when we're gone. So that object of desire will be gone, and we will have no desire. It'll be derision, it'll be disgust. Okay. Anger. So once it's very angry at somebody, how do we counter that? We actually develop love and compassion. So love and compassion. So really hard. That's sort of like. But then, so instead of Alan going down that path, there's a difference of it. Well, Alan, here's this Alan who's patient, loving, compassionate, wise. Instead of being jealous, he's rejoicing. Instead of being really attached, has detachment from things. He's very free. That Alan's very free. This Alan's trapped. And where that's trapped, where did that prison come from? It came from his mind. So the mind created this one, the mind created that one. So which one do I want to be? Some people want to stay here because they feel that rage and they feel so justified. They'd be like maybe Donald Trump's up there. He cannot accept it. Still can't accept he lost the election. And he's going to keep going and hopefully disappear. But imagine if you couldn't get over that. That'd be very sad. But for the rest of us, we've moved on, and so we have a choice. What sort of Alan do we want to be? What sort of me do I want to be? This one or that one or in between. You don't have to be one now. You can be in between. As long as you're making a little bit of progress. Like you're over here. Okay, get a little bit here. Then next year, a little bit there. Next year, until finally we can reach our goal. Okay, so how do we do that? Via meditation. So we become familiar. Meditation becomes familiar. So we become familiar with an object. The object we use here is a neutral object, the breath. And the reason we do that is because this is a pretty secular environment. We can teach you Buddhist meditation, which is cool. But, we're not going to. Well, we can, but we're just going to do something really easy, something people can use, Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, atheist, you can do this meditation on the breath. It's fine. It's secular. It's non-religious. So the breath is really important. If we don't do it, we die. So you've got it there day and night. So we just meditate on the breath going in and out. You can focus on the sensation of the air going in and out of the nostrils. Have it going through your lungs, your stomach going in and out. You don't have to sort of change the pattern of the breathing. It's just simple breath. But keep the mind on it. If those chattering baboons start in the background, ignore them and just go back to the breath. Mindfulness on the breath, and have your attention drag you back. So mindfulness and attention bring you back. So we'll do this for about 10, 12 minutes or so. So you just get into now in terms of meditation posture, the most important thing is to just be comfortable. So you just be comfortable in whatever way you can. If you're sitting on the ground, then that's fine. Just have a straight back. If you're sitting on a chair, have a straight back. Probably don't have your legs crossed, but if it's comfortable having your leg crossed, sitting in that sort of thing. Have your legs crossed, but sort of if you're sitting on a chair, just try to get your posture right so that your back can be straight. Your cushions under your feet are good, and then just have your hands in your lap like that. We tend to put the thumbs slightly together. The eyes are not completely closed, otherwise you sort of go to sleep a bit. Just breathe in and out of the nostrils quietly. So we're just going to do this for maybe 10, 12 minutes. Okay, so now we just focus on the breath and keep those baboons quiet. Okay. In your own time and space, you can stop meditating. I'd love to hear from you people about your experiences and what's happened, what's happening to you. Have you got any things you want to share, questions that I can guess an answer for, or anything you want to say? I'm all ears. Don't. Okay. I mean, we've all got experiences. I'm just giving you one my interpretation of the Buddhist sort of thing. But I think one thing that can happen in this meditation, which is sort of really quite nice, is, okay, we have an object, which is the breath, and we have the mind, which is observing that object. Okay. So there's like this duality. There's the object being observed, and then there's the mind that's the observer. And then as we do this meditation, then the difference between the object and the observing mind, or the object and the subject, that duality, starts to dissipate. So initially there's, I am observing my breathing. I am observing my breathing. And then as we do this, we go a little bit more focused on the breathing, and then the concept of I as the observer diminishes, until finally it fades away more and more, and then there's we lose that tight rigidity of the I. There's just the apprehension. There's just apprehension. There's just breathing. There's just apprehension. No I sticking out there. No I and the observed of it. It's really quite peaceful, because then conceptual thought stops, and so conceptual thought is very tiring. It's annoying. Over-conceptualization is really terrible. So we stop conceptual thought, even the conceptual thought of thinking about the breath, we've stopped. And then there's just the mind, just that latent nature of the mind of having the nature of observing objects, of holding objects. So that's what we experience, just that nature of the mind. So we can access that nature of the mind and actually experience it. It's really quite nice. And so, that's one way this can develop. Now, so we sort of do these sessions, a little bit of this is stabilization meditation. Then we do a little bit of a talk about some sort of Buddhist philosophical subject, and then we can meditate on that, do a bit of analytical meditation. Analytical meditation is totally cool, totally very good, very, very useful. And then we gain a deeper transformative experience. And the subject we were talking about in this thing, or it's been advertised as talking about impermanence, death, reincarnation, these sort of things, which are really fantastic, sort of that foundational subjects that we study in Buddhist philosophy. And the reason for them is because, we'll go through the reasons, but it's really important. If nothing else, understanding impermanence, death and reincarnation gives you like a real shot of adrenaline to do something with your life, with our lives. We need something. We need sometimes become a bit entranced by everything that's going on around us, and we're drowning in it, in the minutiae and the details, and things seem to be overwhelming us, and we just say, oh, this is so important, this is so big, this is so terrible, I have to deal with this, I have to deal with that, I have to... And so that's okay, and we have to deal with stuff, but we tend to dramatise and over-dramatise it, and then that can be really destructive. It can lead to paralysis. Eventually you become paralysed in that sheer panic and fear and anxiety. It can become totally paralysed, and you see people like that. It's very, very sad. And maybe by these meditations, these foundational meditations we do, or these foundational philosophical views we have, like on impermanence and death and how important it is, and then that this life is just one life, and then there's reincarnation, there's another life. So we're going to leave everything in this life behind. Everything we've worried about, everything we've sweated over, everything we've screamed and yelled and cried and broken-hearted, everything, it's going to be left behind. And then there's next. We forget about it all. It's all gone. But the impression that it left on our mind continues. So we're going to make sure that impression it leaves on our mind is really positive, because that's what we take to the next life. This body's gone, but the impression those events in our life made on us, positive or negative, will follow us to the next life and transform that next life. So we're sort of like investing. By investing in meditation and correct view and understanding, we're investing like money for investing in something, a deposit that's going to mature in our next life. So really good investment strategy. Better than superannuation. Superannuation is only this life. Superannuation is like investing for the next life and all those other lives. So that's why we want to meditate on death. It kicks us up the arse. It makes us reevaluate what we're doing. Don't get distracted by meaningless things. Fantastic, and we're investing for the future. Now, there's what we call the 9-point meditation on death. We won't be able to get through it all, but we'll do a couple of little things. The Buddhists love categories of things, and categories of things are really good because we can count them off. We can count to 3, we can count to 10 using our hands, and we count to 20 with our socks off. So it's really useful. We can keep track of things. So we start with 3 in Buddhism, then we have subdivisions of those. Okay, so the first 3 are that death is definite, but the time of death is indefinite, and the only thing that helps at the time of death is how we've cultivated the mind. So that are 3 really big ones. That are 3. So death is definite. Now, that sounds so bleeding obvious, but we don't believe it. We don't live our lives in that belief. A part of our life, a part of our brain, our mind, our thought, thinks we're going to live forever, thinks other people are going to live forever. Then when they die, we get a shock. When we get told we've got cancer, we get a shock. When we die horribly in a sudden accident, we get a shock. But it shouldn't be shocking, because death is definite, and we've known it from the moment we first lived. But the time of death is indefinite, because we never know when it'll happen. And then what helps us at the time of death is only our mental applications. Now, because that's our first 3 things. We've sort of touched on these a bit. Now I'm going to go into a little bit more detail. Because now we're doing an analytical meditation, and we have to... it's really good if you just do these meditations. If you do this meditation every day, it will transform your attitudes. It will transform my attitudes. I do this meditation every day. It transforms my attitudes. I don't get as hung up on stuff. What you heard? Don't sweat the small stuff? Is that the word? Don't sweat the small stuff? Yeah. Okay. So don't sweat, which is once you understand about death and impermanence, everything is the small stuff. So don't sweat anything. Okay. So first thing, inevitability of death, and this comes from Lama Tsongkhapa, our guru who founded the Gelugpa order many hundreds of years ago. So first thing is everyone has to die. There is no one who won't die. So Queen Elizabeth today, her funeral, people live their whole life with her. Yeah, I did. I remember as a little kid, it must have been in St Kilda Road, waving as she shot past in a car. I can't remember. That was a long, long time ago. But I remember her. So, but she's died. She's died. Everybody dies. So everyone has to die. So there's no one person out there who not going to die. They're all going to die. So we have to continuously think about that. Now, the other thing is your lifespan is continuously decreasing. So, okay, sorry about this, but we walked in the door at 8 o'clock. It's now 8:38. 38 minutes has gone. We could have been watching Netflix. We could have been watching the Brownlow was last night. Well, we could have been watching the funeral, okay. But no, we could have been watching the Brownlow last night, and that was hours. Okay, so 38 minutes have gone. Has this been productive? I sincerely hope so. It's been very productive for me. It's kept me from watching the TV. So thing, but also, no, seriously, this is about Dharma. This is about preparing for the next life. So your lifespan is continuously decreasing. And then, but despite all that, the amount of time we have for spiritual practice is so small. Okay, so we've got an hour here, 24 hours today. How many hours in a week? 148 hours in a week? I might be wrong. Okay, 52 weeks in a year. But the average lifespan maybe 70. So do the maths. What proportion of that is spiritual practice? Teeny, win a bit. Okay, so but despite our great sort of wishes, we still have so little time for practice. So death is definite. It's getting shorter every second, and then we have so little time. Despite that, we have so little time to practice. So those three things. Then the next one is on the inevitability of death. So there are going to be 6 points to this meditation. It sounds a bit complex, but I'll read it out and you go through it. Okay, the uncertainty of the time of death. The human lifespan is uncertain. So in Buddhist cosmology, there's a cosmos, and on that cosmos there are other places, other forms of life, human lives. They say in the northern continent, living being, the humans there live for 1,000 years. That's a set lifespan. On the eastern and western continents, it's 250 years, 500 years. But on our continent, we have an uncertain lifespan, and we're maximum of 70, 80, 100 years or something like that. So on our continent, it's uncertain. It's uncertain. There are also many causes of death. I mean, it's not just road accidents, it's everything. It's got COVID. It's before that it was, before that was everything, wasn't it? I grew up with tuberculosis, grew up with polio, grew up with measles, mumps, rubella. I mean, before that there was syphilis. There still is syphilis. There's all these diseases still around. Smallpox. I mean, you name it. So, all the time. There's all the cancers. There's more causes. There are probably more causes of death now. It seems like one of the degenerative aspects of nature is that there are more illnesses. So we've actually got we're getting new illnesses, like COVID, new illness. Very, very new illnesses. So these new illnesses are coming, new causes of a way of dying. And the human body is very, very fragile. So this human body, which we think is so great, so powerful, it can be snuffed out. It's got nothing. What's the only reason why we live is that the beat has the next beat. I mean, imagine if that's all it is. One beat, then another beat. And if the heart said, I'm not going to have another beat, then that's it. It's over. It's over, isn't it? All that heart has to do is, and people do that. They go to bed at night. One of my friends, his son was an athlete, really strong. He went to bed at night. And didn't, the students at his university found him a day or two later in his bed. His heart stopped. Why? I mean, it's weird, isn't it? So that's it. So the human body is very fragile. So these 6 bits. Try to do this meditation. I'll read them out. And this is an analytical meditation. You use examples from your own life, the grief and losses you've had, the expectations you've got about yourself and everything, and then we just meditate on this. This is an analytical meditation, very different from the first one. So if you basically get into a meditation posture. Okay, just focus. We're going to analyse reality. This is part of the 9-point meditation on death. The first point is about the inevitability of death. That has 3 sections. So the inevitability of death. The first one is that every living being must die. So in your analysis, go through every living being that exists on this world that you know of and how they all die. Every living being must die. Okay, the next aspect is every second passes, a moment of life is gone. We become that closer to death. So every second, every minute, every hour draws us 1 second, 1 minute, 1 hour closer to our death. And the third aspect is, despite this, we have so little time to practice spiritual philosophy. So despite this, we have so little time to practice spiritual philosophy. Now the next section is the uncertainty of the time of death. First aspect of this is that in our world, the time of death is totally unpredictable. We cannot assume we will live for 100 years, 70 years, 60 years, or even 20 years. The time of death is totally unpredictable on this world. The second aspect is there are so many more causes of death than there are of life. The causes of dying vastly outweigh the causes for living. To see if you agree with that. Now the third aspect is that this body that we cherish, is so fragile. This body that we cherish is so fragile. Let's meditate on the fragility of this body. And now the conclusion of this meditation is, because death is certain, I must practice spiritual philosophy. Because death is certain, I must practice spiritual philosophy. So just have that conclusion in your mind. I must practice spiritual philosophy. Now the conclusion of the second one, that the time of death is uncertain, is that I must practice spiritual philosophy now, immediately. No more procrastination. I must devote my life to spiritual philosophy now. Okay, then now you cease this analytical meditation. Relax. Cool. Okay, now I finished doing my job. Now you got to do something. This is the audience participation section. Okay. Questions, answers. Questions and answers. So actually, give me some answers. That'll be really cool. I'd love some. I'd love to know the answer. So maybe somebody's got the answers. But any questions, answers, experiences, things you don't agree with, things you.
Just on the topic of death.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, I was just trying to think of how do you not fall into the trap of becoming despondent?
Okay, yep. Good.
Overwhelmed?
Sure. Oh, yeah. Okay, so just thinking of the topic of death, which is a really delightful subject to talk about. How do you not become despondent or overwhelmed and all that sort of stuff? Well, grief is... let's think about grief. What is grief? Grief is a loss that overwhelms you. I mean, overwhelming loss. And death can be overwhelming. Without that, it can ruin a person's life and that. It's interesting. I'm sure. Yeah, there was. We can't idolize. We can't say, the Tibetans, they are wonderful spiritual practitioners. They didn't have grief. They did. Everyone's had grief. Everyone's had loss. It's in relation to Look, it's awful. Okay, first thing, when it's in relation to somebody else, it's terrible. Okay, your mum, your dad, your child. I mean, if it's your child, it's just you have to recreate all your life. Okay, you're going to lose mum and dad, but when it's your child or your loved partner, okay, that's okay. How can you manage? But the second thing is how do we deal with our own grief? This is the purpose of this meditation is me. Yeah, no one right out there. No, it's me. It's about my death. What am I doing with my life now that will make my death meaningful? What am I doing with my life now that will make my purpose of this fragile life okay, so that when I'm lying on my deathbed, I don't have regrets. I don't have regrets. In fact, maybe I'll die happily. Maybe I'll die joyfully, because I know what I've done with my life has prepared me perfectly for that next life. So, grief. Grief is another. It's huge. Okay, so we can talk about that grief, and so, but maybe the within the context of this is, what am I doing with my? The purpose of this meditation is, I've got to get off my arse and I've got to do something better with my life. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when I've got time, not when I retire. I'll play a bit of golf and bowls, and then I'll make some time for spiritual healing. No, now. Like now, it's 3 minutes to 9. Now, tonight. Don't wait. I mean, one of us might not get home tonight. So that's how we have to live our life. Not with a sense of panic, but just with a sense that, how am I going to reevaluate what I do? Now, I believe, if we can come to terms with our own death, then that grief of out there will become handleable. Well, we'll be able to handle it somehow. That's my gut feeling. I can't answer about grief. I can't answer about grief. But all we can do is train our mind for our death. Start with your death, our death, and then the grief that comes from loved ones and that. Okay, that's an extrapolation thereof. So that's one way of looking at it. I think, is that of any help? Are you sure you're just saying that? You're just being polite? Okay, well, it's okay. There was one at the time of Buddha. Okay, as I said, we don't want to sort of fantasize about what it was like in the past. We're all the same. We're the same. But Buddha lived 2,500 years ago. The Tibetan civilization before China invaded was from about 800 AD to say 2000 or something. So anyhow, they suffered like we did. Okay, so at the time of Buddha, there was a woman who had lost her child, and she was so struck with grief that she'd heard that the Buddha could raise people from the dead, and the Buddha could. The Buddha could do miracles, he could do anything, all sorts of stuff. Now, okay, so she was so struck with her grief and so absolutely distraught that she went to the Buddha and said, implored the Buddha, okay, my child has died, I'm in so much pain, I can't bear it, please bring my child back to me. Please bring my child back to me. I know you can, you're the Buddha, you can do it. Okay. And the Buddha looked at her and understood where she was coming from. And he said, okay, I will do that. I will do that for you. But first of all, I want you to go to every house in the village, in the town, and I want you to find me one person or one household where grief and tragedy and loss has not occurred. And I want you to bring me a mustard seed from that house. Mustard seeds were really common. Rice or grain or anything, doesn't matter. But okay, I want you to find a house. So she went to the first house, and I can't remember the detail, but so she went to the first house, and the people answered the door, and she said, look, I've been to the Buddha will resurrect my child if you haven't had loss. And she said, have you lost somebody? And the people in that house said, yes. My father died. My mother died. Went to the next house. My child died. Went to the next house. My wife died. My uncle died. And so she went through the whole village. And then gradually her grief started to dissipate. This was the Buddha's skillful means. He knew that this would happen. And gradually her grief started to dissipate, and then she came back to the Buddha and said, I can't find a house where grief has not struck. And she resolved it in her own way. And I thought that was quite a nice. So the Buddha did not resurrect her child because she'd resolved it. Now, I think sometimes grief and loss, it's sometimes been with other people who've. I think in that analogy, and one analogous way we can do it is, if you get involved with other people who've experienced the same sort of tragedies and share stories and give mutual support. I think that helps a bit with grief and loss and pain. But the reality, if we're honest and if we're really open, we all experience grief, loss and pain. So it really is a matter of just speaking to the person next to you and talking about their grief and loss and pain, and that's it. So and which is why we're giving this opportunity here. As you said, it's an unusual topic. You don't go down to the pub with your mates, after the footy. So the footy's on Saturday, after the grand final, you go down to your mates to the pub and say, great, Geelong won, or whoever won, and then say, look, I want to talk about the loss of the grief I'm feeling from the loss of my mum or dad or child. They're not going to be interested. They'll change the subject, because people don't know how to talk about it. They don't know how to talk about it. They're uncomfortable, they're embarrassed, they've got their own baggage, all that. It's culturally inappropriate, blah, blah, blah. We're stuck up, Anglo-Irish sort of people. Like, Prince Charles, you haven't seen him cry, have we yet? I mean, that stuck up British sort of thing. So, all those things, different cultures have different ways of expressing it, but here it's a safe place. We can talk about it with impunity and also with joy, because it actually does. It's the first step on the spiritual path comes from understanding death and impermanence. Without that, there is no spiritual path. That's my understanding of it. Yeah. Good luck. Anybody else? Oh, hello.
Hi.
You might have to speak a bit louder because you've got your mask on, that's all.
My mum passed away 4 weeks ago.
Yep.
She prepared me for her death. She turned to Buddhism and she explained that her life she will reincarnate.
Oh.
And we were lucky enough to be with her when she died and held her hand. And I truly believe that I was with her and she left peacefully.
Great.
And I believe that she has reincarnated.
Wow. Fantastic. Wow. Okay, so just for the purpose of the microphone and everything, I'll just a summary. So this lady here has very kindly shared to us that her mother died 4 weeks ago, but she had turned to Buddhism and believed in reincarnation and was prepared for death. And so when she died, I think the death was peaceful, will I say? And you as her family were able to engage in that process and find it really, I'm struggling for a word. Well, intimate and not too much hardship. Is that right? Yeah. Not too much hardship? Good, okay, good. Okay, so that's another advantage of meditating upon death and having some reconciliation of it. The reconciliation is that when you die, you're peaceful, and then also those people around you won't have to suffer as much. If you're not at peace with yourself and the inevitability of death, the uncertainty of death, and what matters at the time of death, those 3 things, then your death will be maybe more traumatic, and then those around you will be traumatized too. So that's another benefit. You're better, you die better, and those people around you die better, and maybe give you that sort of experience. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's awesome. Yeah. So are you a Buddhist or not? Yeah.
I'm not.
No, we're not looking for converts.
I don't know. I don't follow any religion.
Yeah, cool. Great. We're not like a religion. We don't have a God. Buddha's not a God. He's not an all-creator God, so we don't have to believe in a God who creates things. Well, we don't believe them. We believe karma and emptiness. Karma and emptiness are the generators of experience. So, yeah. So, that's pretty cool. Anybody else? What's today? Today's the 19th. We've got one more class next week. Hello. Yeah. Hi.
I should say that we had a beloved dog die
Yeah.
last week as well. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'd just like to thank you and Taras
Hmm?
because the meditations here and pondering all these things kind of helped that whole event.
Wow.
Helped us be at peace and calm and loving and just, yeah, it was, yeah, so thanks for those skills, imparting those skills to us, because, you know,
Fantastic. Okay. Well, once again for the microphone, yeah. This gentleman kindly shared with us again that his beloved dog that died last week, and that by having maybe talked about these death and impermanence and reincarnation, etc., that's been beneficial. So you're partners, eh? So how are you feeling?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what you said. That I think it's still a difficult process.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
it's always going to be a gap. You're always going to remember, have those times,
Yeah, of course.
and that's life.
Yeah. So you're both sad, is that right? You're both sad? Yeah.
But not overwhelmingly so, you know, because it happened so beautifully that, you know, and I don't think it would have gone that way if we had, you know, slightly shiny minds at the time. So,
Well,
And it's kind of funny the way that you're saying that the time of death is unpredictable. In this case, it wasn't. We thought that it was
yeah, I understand. I understand.
terrible, but
I know, I understand.
we
Yeah.
knew the precise moment.
Yeah. Too cool.
And in a way that was kind of everyone was prepared. So it made it less traumatic.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I know it's just a dog, but
No, dogs are living beings. I mean, there's no difference between the consciousnesses of a dog and the consciousness of us at that raw level. And look, in the past, we've been dogs. I mean, we've been dogs, we've been humans, we've been animals, we've been all sorts of living beings. So, some spiritual philosophies have a different view of reincarnation. They think the human life is a stepping up. I think some of the Hindu philosophies, other philosophies believe that. But the Buddhist philosophy is not that kind. You know, you go to animal realms, you go to there's all sorts of other. Yeah, if we want to talk about Buddhist cosmology, it'd be pretty fantastic. It's really it's really kooky. But there's all sorts of existences. You know, really existences of incredible deprivation and they're non-human, non-animal, but and existences that are incredible, fantastic joy. And because karma creates. Causes create results. Causes create results. With this life here is created by causes. Other sort of causes create other forms of life. So it's all cause and effect. It's all totally logical, rational. Okay, it's 10 past. Yeah. If anyone's got it, but otherwise, you know. Thank you, and thank you for sharing things that have happened. It's really, really important. To do that. And yeah, look, maybe see you next week. We have a cup of tea up there, and we can sit down and talk up there and everything. Otherwise, drive safely. Bye bye.